Hi, Branko.
Hi there. Hi, everybody. Hi, Elena.
How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Thanks for having me today. Thanks for
It's
coming,
great.
everybody.
I'm happy to have you here today with us. And we'd like to share a few words about you with our attendees. Branko is the director of content at Chosen Data, a content team that specializes on technical content for SEO of MarTech companies. He's built successful content programs for some of the best technical marketing blogs. And it's our pleasure to welcome you, Branko. Here you are. Have fun with the topic, guys.
Thank you for the introduction. And I'll get right into this. Let me just set up the screen share. And it'll be my Chrome with the slide deck and the slideshow. Oh, and can you see this well right now? It looks like it. Okay. Uh, so, of course, if there's any glitches, if there's any feedback, please put them into the comments. I have my comment tab open on a second screen that I'll be watching, and here I have the material. Olena started introducing me. I'm with Chosen Data, my beloved team, and our beloved clients. We are a content SEO agency. We also have our own website that we just started building up. We have some fun plans with that one too. Now, first, to introduce who we are, I'm actually going to start with you, good people, the attendees. From the registration form, we saw that people who are attending are mostly either content managers, writers, SEOs, and salespeople, who are super important for any marketer. Then, when it comes to roles and job titles, we have VPs, CEOs, founders, managers, consultants from agencies, freelancers, and small and medium business owners. So that's, I think, the perfect crowd for the topic and also for the people who could get value out of growing blogs through technical content that builds authority and brings the right people to the website. About us a little more, we have our name because we used to do a lot of analytics, and that's also why now one of our main niches is marketing technology companies and other technology companies. We also have worked a lot and love to work with health and healthcare and have really good results there. And I actually see a lot of parallel because people in health and healthcare tend to be super data driven and they really care for quality and little details, which is very, very similar to tech companies. This is where we have been published. I'm super, super proud of this list. It's been super enjoyable. I'm also really grateful for Serpstat for giving me an award once for a blog article that really made my day. You see, we worked with Moz, Single Grain, G2. Google Analytics has tweeted out our content and our clients' content. We've spoken or I've spoken at other webinars and conferences, and I just love putting the knowledge out there. I love sharing what we have learned so that it doesn't just stay in our team, but it goes out there. That's exactly how I have learned, and I love now passing on the baton. These are our clients, recent ones. Some of them are still going, some of them are long-term clients. I would say these are all from the MarTech niche, since those are the most recent and the most relevant to what I'll be talking about today. But a lot of this applies just the same to health companies. I would say that whenever somebody asks me, who is this right for? Who could you work for? Who should be investing into technical blog content? I would say anyone who knows what their company is about so that they can be consistent with certain topics and subtopics over a long period of time, because SEO and content is a long-term game. Also, ideally the companies that have their marketing pretty dialed and they need to pour oil on the fire. So if you have your marketing operations or just in general your revenue operations built out, or you've been able to get pretty far, then if you invest into content and SEO is going to amplify, boost, speed up everything for you. So you're in a great place for that. Now, you could be an online company, you could be an offline company, you could be a marketing agency that gets this for clients, you could be a B2B SaaS company, something that's super common in our field. B2B SaaS companies invest a lot in content. You could be an e-commerce, you could be a clinic with in-person appointments only, but as long as building authority in your field, thanks to your own expertise and experience that you will now share online, if that can contribute to the value that you create for the people who do business with you, then you're the right person for this. I would also say we're hungry for work right now. We've made some successful hires and trained successfully over the last quarter, and I'd love to get the team busy. So feel free to reach out to me. My email is on one of the last slides. A bit more about my background now. Language to me is a marketing at scale, and I'm a linguist. These four are the languages that I speak fluently. I've also lived in those countries and in a few others, and I speak a few other languages fluently, and if you, no, not fluently, but conversationally outside of these four. And if you think about it, there is a strong, strong parallel between language and marketing. When you speak or write for someone, when you use language, you try to get your message across, and then you get input from the words that you get back from the other person or from the group you're talking to. And then you're trying to understand the input that came back, like if you were doing marketing analytics. Now, if you want to do it at scale, that's when language becomes marketing. You're talking to a lot of people at once, and you're receiving a lot of input back at once. That's a big part of the reason I'm in marketing personally and enjoy doing this. I also love the sports, the mountain sports. The bottom right one is in Madeira, where I'm right now for about a month. Uh, it's something that has shaped a lot of my whereabouts, where I am, where I've been spending my time. Currently, is between mountains in California and mountains in Slovakia, both of which I love a lot. The work is always remote for me and for my team and for our clients, at least for most of them, and definitely the work with us is. And then to balance out the online character of the work and being sucked into the screen, I love getting involved in community building, building up membership bases for co-working spaces, doing conferences about developing mountain towns or other towns that are a bit more remote. They're not your typical cities. And that balances out the life for me quite a bit. Here, I'd like to say this real quick. I'm not sure if this belongs into the webinar, but I'll do this because I find it to be super, super important. Maybe this is the most important slide of all. I come from East Slovakia, very close to Ukraine. I love going to Ukraine. I have very good friends in Ukraine. We have collaborators we work with in Ukraine, such as the Serpstat team of those who are still there. And I feel very, very, very strongly for what's going on since the invasion, and I would call on everyone for support. I would also like to not just be partial, because as much as there's suffering in Ukraine, there's also a lot of suffering among Russians. We have friends and coworkers who are either not able to travel back to Russia and see their family, like one of our team members who's not able to travel back from Slovakia to Russia to see her mom. She hasn't been, and she might not be anytime soon. And also friends and clients who had to leave when the mobilization happened and had to flee to another country. One of our clients right now is in Kazakhstan. So I'd love to send my love and my wishes of peace for everyone affected, and take a couple of moments of quiet just to feel that through. And thank you. So now, as we get back to talking about work, I after news like that, I always realize how fun and light work can be, and also should be, compared to some real struggles going on at work. Even when building an agency is hard, even when satisfying and demanding a marketing technology client is hard, it's still the fun stuff. It's still the fun part. That's how it should be. So we'll go over goals, results, and ideas first. A lot of this is based on the questions that came in. Then we are going to speak to the team. We'll have an org chart that we'll share, and also hiring and how to bring the person to higher volume. We have process with a lot of documentation. From Brad Smith, I've learned that your documentation is some of the most important parts of your process, but it's not just the SOPs, it's a lot more. And then we have a little bonus at the end. So also, if you would like to put in more questions into the comments, feel free to do so. I'm going to try and keep up, and I'm going to try and answer the questions as I go, so that I don't do the thing that speakers usually do, which is waiting for the Q&A to be at the end and then being on my own agenda for the rest of it. I'll be super grateful if we receive questions throughout the session. So feel free to put them in there either right now or at any point when you put them in when you think of them. So next, um, for results, I mean goals first, excuse me. So why are we even doing this? Why are we trying to scale up content? Why do we need a killer, thriller, super duper, triple, quadruple team and process? Well, it's because we want quality traffic to feed the revenue operations, to fill the hopper, to fill the furnace so that the rest of the marketing team can do their work. Many times, content in itself is all you need. And like I'm mentioning in my next bullet point, you get a lot of first touch conversions from people who just came to you for the first time. But most of the time, it's going to be that content brings people to your website, and then it's some part of their path to conversion. And if you can leverage it well, which I'll show you some charts about, then all of your other marketing channels too, especially social and email, can do a lot. But even sales, because of course you can amplify your blog posts by publishing them on social. What you can also do though is that your salespeople have a library of blog articles, and when they're checking in with the people, they will not just do that annoying, "Hey, I'd like to check in for the sixth time to see if you're ready to purchase right now." Instead, they can actually send an article that answers a question that solves a pain point. So content as the fuel for marketing, but also sales is a huge part of what we're doing this for. Now there's snowball effect. And if you're doing content and SEO well, your chart should be a bit like this. Your current year should be quite unrecognizable from the previous one. If you're doing it well, if you're consistent, if you're paying attention to detail. And then last but not least at all, building authority and trust is huge. That in itself is the goal. That alone justifies the budgets. Of course, you want to convince your boss or the client differently. You want to show them some numbers. You want to compare to costs of PPC clicks. But if you even just bring this message across of how building authority on your area of expertise is what you often need, and actually what you always need to close any sale, because authority leads to trust, then this is huge. I would also say that expert original information is the fuel of the whole internet. I think there could be a few other controversial reasons for the internet existing as well. Some not so safe for work, but I would say expert original information is the number one for any marketer. And that's what you get rewarded for. Whenever we publish content, such as this webinar today, something great happens. I don't always know what will happen, especially when it's one-off like this webinar. But if you have a proper content program that goes over long term, we end up, our SEO director and analyst end up getting this data that allows us to snowball. Now, there was a question from Ion. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Sorry if I'm not. I know how that is when your name gets butchered. First touch conversions are when somebody comes to you and on the very first visit, they convert. To explain that maybe even more, the opposite of that would be last touch. So let's say they come to you by finding an article on the blog, and that's the first time they ever interacted with you. So that's their first touch. And then they come back to the blog or the website a few times. Then they see something on social media. Then they get an email. Then they come to the blog again. And then on the seventh visit, they come directly to the product page that they had bookmarked, and they convert. So that last touch conversion would be from the product page, the first touch from the blog. I hope that answers the question. Feel free to keep sending them. I'll do my best to answer as many as I can. Now we get into the results. This is definitely going to be a bit like I'm bragging, but that's because our own data is the best data I can share, the data from our own work. And mainly, please take this as expectation setting for what you could achieve with content. So what happened here was that we were dropping in amount of traffic to our amplitude cluster, which was a pretty small cluster at the time, just a couple articles. And then at about this point, we started publishing about amplitude again. This is for a marketing technology consultant, an analytics company who is actually very good at supporting the business. Reach out to me if you would need one to build their tech stack and automations and such. But so what we did for them is that we published more articles on their blog about the work they do. So, for instance, when people have been getting grumpy, which they still are, about Google Analytics, especially the forced migration to Google Analytics 4, people started comparing GA4 to other alternatives, such as Amplitude. And we have an article about that. But our article isn't just something that AI could write that scrapes from everything else on the internet. It's about a table that I'll show you further down in the presentation, a table of things that you need to pay attention to and the factors that help you make your own decision about which of the two tools is the best one for you. There's some objective facts, as objective as we could make them, about which of the tool has which strength, but mainly the article is about how to choose one. And that is super representative to the work that the analytics consultant will do. We also added some more, of course, other comparisons. Then we have a tool even as a part of the cluster, and you see how now we've been growing nicely, and that's just going to keep continuing because we have more that's about to be published. And the biggest traffic driver, mixed panel versus Amplitude, is getting a full overhaul. This used to be position 0. Now it's more like position 7 or 8. We're trying to bring it back to position 0, above the featured snippets and in the featured snippets. So you see that we could reverse the drop from this one-hit wonder and then make it into a lasting success. You can also see that email here and social have been able to benefit from the content. So this is not even repurposing, because they just published our links. To me, repurposing would be more if you slice it up and create 20 different social media posts. This is straight up publishing or social posters sending out emails about the content on the blog. So you see in the blue that the SEO element, the SEO and the optimization behind everything, is the biggest distribution source. But now we're able to leverage content further. What happened is that we outranked companies with much bigger budgets. This piece about mixed panel versus Amplitude has outranked mixed panel. It was right below the ads and right above anybody else's results for a couple of years, actually. We've outranked other experts, other direct competitors of ours. Quite a lot of awesomeness has happened. And I would say that a big reason, or a big part of the reason, is that we have our unique angles about our own experience. That's the best technical content for you. So this is the example of the feature snippet back when the website was called something else before a rebrand. The next one is about something that's also high demand and also about a unique angle. And again, something that AI couldn't write. So our client, our analytics consultant client, is very strong and a really tight partner with Segment as the customer data platform segment. Not Segment like a cohort in some analytics tool, but Segment the tool. And again, people are confused. What's Segment compared to GTM? So we explained this in an article that's now position 0. You see how we're at the top. We are also in the featured image here. This is the featured, in the featured snippet, I mean, because this is the featured image of the article. And our unique angle here is not just which is better, but also which one serves for what and how to use them together, because that's what we prescribe to people. You now see that in the cluster, we also have a service page and we have a tool, once again. This service page is actually where most conversions happen. If I were to show you a page about leads that this content generates, but the content, once again, comes to these expert shares about how to work with Segment in ways that even the Segment documentation doesn't cover. And then it leads people to the services page. Outside of this website, so there will be data that this table doesn't cover. We also have several articles that are guest posts on other big websites about how to use Segment really, really well. And again, with this, we outranked the bigger budget. So if you look here, we outranked Segment itself and some other websites that are much bigger than us, or at least for now they are. What this leads to is industry recognition, that authority building. It's something that opens doors to a bunch of different opportunities. A lot happens when you get this done, when you achieve that. Now, this is this is for a healthcare company, a company that owns a few clinics in dermatology. And you see how we have a huge growth in traffic. So it looks like it's not as dramatic, but the dark green is just this year. If you compare last year with light green, it's uncomparable. Year over year, October 2021 to October 2022 is 9x. And that's something that your clients, your bosses will be excited about. I know we are too. Even when the client might get difficult or they complain, we can have a really good conversation because we come as the authority now that we have numbers like this. And also all of the people coming to their website have come to know them as an authority. And this is the snowball here. We dig a little deeper into how come the growth is so great, and we discover that the growth is mostly from the new content that we've been publishing on the blog. So for the dermatology, it's about things like recovery from wart removal procedure, or it can be what can this and this procedure actually do for you? What is it right for? Are you a candidate for this and this procedure? So again, something that a doctor needs to write. And we actually have an MD that we're super grateful for, who writes this content. She calls herself Wordslinger MD. Marge, if you're watching this, love you very much. You're a big part of why this has happened. But also, we have access to doctor reviews from this company. We have access to a designer, our own designer, who makes custom visuals to explain, for instance, how the layers of the skin work. And so we can publish content that nobody else does. And then once I compare cost per click to these blog articles with cost per click from Google Ads for the same client, Google Ads look like a joke. They're still used because using SEO and PPC in combination is amazing. And the PPC search terms are bottom funnel more so than the blog. But I mean, the authority and the life that this website gets is amazing, and it's going to carry on for a long time. If you just have PPC, once you turn off the PPC, it's done. Nothing else really happens. With this, if we stopped working now, which of course we don't want to, but if we did, the effect would carry on for a few years. It'd be dropping, and so instead, we want to make it grow. I guess I should show it this way, grow. Um, but it still lasts a lot longer than almost anything, and this is a snowball we want. So let's get into some cluster ideas. One of the questions from people who have registered and submitted the form was, can you give us ideas for technical content? So I just gave you some, and now I'm going to elaborate on what a good cluster is. The cluster has variety in the subtopics as well as the search intent. So it'll be a product page, it'll be blog articles, it can be a downloadable resource, and then it can be a guest blog post. So product and service page could be a few things. It could be a physical product. It could be the versions of the physical product, where often you're actually better off by having separate product pages for the different variations of your product or service. I would say the more specific, the better, especially if it serves a different customer in a different point in time. Then you also have a variety of search intent in the blog articles. So someone is trying to learn what this thing actually is. Let's say it's going to be the difference between Universal Analytics and Google Analytics 4. So someone might just want to know what GA is or what it is for. Then another person might be interested in how to actually implement it well, or how to get the most out of the free tier. Someone else is further down the funnel maybe, and they might see how it's been used to generate specific data on something that Universal Analytics couldn't before. Yet someone else, especially if it's paid software, could be interested in a case study of someone who started paying for it. And then maybe you add a podcast or a webinar, and even better, you might write articles that relate to the podcast and the webinar. Then maybe you have a downloadable resource for lead generation. Maybe that's a 5,000 word article that's based on your internal procedures. Maybe it's an industry research or report. Andy Crestodina from Orbit Media will tell you to do original research for backlinks and social shares and just community building around your brand. It could be a checklist to download, anything again that relates. It could be a tool. I should have put tool on here, and so on. Then what we do, especially if your site is low domain authority, is that we'll publish guest blog posts on other industry sites. That gives you instant access to a much bigger audience, links, their distribution, just so much goodness that, especially if your own website and distribution aren't strong yet, but you already have a good hub and a good base, mainly your website, you should publish on other websites quite a bit. As another cluster idea, I'll give you this one. I'm just going to mention real quick that this is for an ESG environmental consulting company, where you see a variety of keywords, where some of these different content types actually target the same keyword, but they have a different angle and search intent. And then we have two pillars and several beams in the hierarchy for what we could publish about ESG and ESG consulting services. Now, let's get into team and process. Excited for this one. This, just remember, will truly be about technical content. It's not going to be about publishing yet another piece about what is a KPI, unless you have some sort of an expert knowledge that you can share that'll be different than the 12 other articles that already rank on Google and that are already good about what is a KPI. This is going to be a content that stands out, even if it's about a highly competitive topic or a term that's maybe not technical, but you will make it that way now. It wouldn't be just anyone that can write this for you. This is about how you can stand out, like with the clusters that I showed above. And a lot of it will be about subject matter expertise that we'll be sourcing. So this is the org chart. This is how we operate. This is what our clients experience. This is what I would say is to be in every team that wants to publish original technical content, unlike anything that's been published before. So you see, we have our SEO person who starts every piece of content with a brief and then also optimizes it before publishing. We have an account manager who used to be project manager, but we've transitioned our beloved PM to AM because there's a lot about relationship management and strategy for how we use this month as well as we can. How do we use the retainer budget for this month as well as we can? AM to me is much, much more about strategy. PM is more about execution of a list that's been given to. But in something as complex as content production, the manager on the project has to be good about making decisions about what's important today, what's important this week, this month. What is the client actually telling us? You know how in design, when somebody tells you you need to make the logo bigger. In content, the client might tell you you have filler paragraphs and you need to get a lot of detail from them, get them to highlight the copy for you and understand what they perceive as filler, because most likely it'll be very important, very different for someone else. Then we also have an editor. You could have a managing editor in the company, but you definitely want an editor. Even for our best writers, the most favorite, best paid, best writers we have on the team, we provide an editor as a way to enable them to work even better and just to put another set of eyes of someone smart on that great piece of content. Otherwise, we might not be as consistent. I'll quote Brad Smith again from a recent podcast that I just listened to about how he scaled, or his team has scaled Monday.com. And the main notion was that the writer is the person who can say the same thing four different ways, while the editor has to avoid rewriting and instead pay attention to structure because, as Brad says, the editor is the person who needs to make sure that every article for the project sounds the same. Not the variety, but the style guide and meeting it. Then we have technical content writers. We like to have a few so that we can have the bandwidth and the buffer to expand. And so they become more familiar with the content so they can help each other. They can maybe even help each other source experts. And then at the foundation of this all are subject matter experts. We do a bunch of interviews. We are very active in communities on Slack. Some examples would be Marketing Operations, Superpath, Future of SaaS, Measure, Traffic Think Tank, Peak Freelance. You could do help a B2B writer, a great website that I believe Superpath has purchased, and so on. You need to be active. The more you do this, the more active you will be. We have a sheet of people that we have collaborated on for guest content, and usually people are super happy to give you a quote, either by filling out your questionnaire or sitting down with you for 30 minutes. And then you give them a backlink, or you publish the entire article on their behalf, or you do something else in return. People are super happy to collaborate on content because they know how hard this is. For hiring, we use the same communities. We sometimes also do paid job posts, especially if they're with services like the Writer Finder. where you actually avoid the whole headache of going through the the resumes. We don't actually even really look at the resumes. We're not interested in that. We're interested in work samples and what have you done that's relevant to us. And if anything, we'll look at your LinkedIn profile very closely. But what the Writer Finder does, shout out to that, there's actually a spin-off from another content agency that I also look up to, is that the Writer Finder sends you 5 or 6 writers that they think are great for what you need right now. You pay 200 or 250 and you get a short list, which saves you an incredible amount of time, absolutely worth the money. We also have a database of connections that we could ask, and we have people on the bench. You could definitely use Glassdoor, Indeed, LinkedIn, and then the last resort option is Upwork. We used to hire through Upwork only a few years ago, but the company is greedy, 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 and their fees now look like your government's 7 different taxes that you have to watch out for on your tax return. And we've also been blocked, not directly, but they have caused problems to us that they were really bad at solving. So be careful with that one, as much as it still works because a lot of great talent is still on there. Now, when hiring, what do we look at? What do we look for? We look for communication quality, look for writing samples, but those are specific to our industry. Then, after we have a shortlist, we interview for personality and we check how good the person is with language. We give a paid trial of 2 different assignments, two so that we can try them on different topics and see how they work and get a better glimpse of the person that we already like a lot. And then we ramp them up. But we have to keep all these steps. Whenever we skip one, or not whenever, but when we have skipped one, what has happened is that something didn't go well and we didn't evaluate the person well, and maybe we were too optimistic about them. So this takes time, and that's why for us it's a constant thing. Now, the costs are something that you might be interested in. The juicy part, there's a Google sheet from the slides here that you are going to get. You can click on the spreadsheet and get them. So we have a breakdown where the total cost is about 900, and that's for about 1,500 words. If you want to operate as a company that has to take care of hiring, sales, pay time off, promoting ourselves, we do about a 50% markup. I've seen more. And so you see, it's not cheap. But again, if you look at the clicks you get, the authority you get, the conversions you get, how your funnel fills with this is something that's quite worth it. Um, Vladimir is asking about how to prepare a list of topics when you don't understand the technical material well. And there's actually a task that we give to our SEO who's doing keyword research. And the SEO person on the team has to spend enough time doing the keyword research and also learning about the industry to actually understand it. You cannot prepare a list of topics when you do not understand the technical material well. You have to understand it well enough, at least. You don't have to be an expert, but you have to gain enough understanding of the industry, the company, the topic, and also what people are searching for, where especially what people are searching for gives you a lot of direction on what's important, and it helps you focus on the main things you need to learn to understand. But you actually have to overcome that and learn. There is no other way, really. This Google Sheet that I'm mentioning here is something that you can find in Google Sheets, and it has a few different tabs. I'm going to be referring to it on a few more slides here right now, and you can copy that as you wish. We also have a production checklist, and I'm actually also getting the question of using AI tools for content and content production. I might save that for a little later, but I'm going to allude to it bit by bit. So in the checklist here, you see they are massive. You see why we need to price the way we do. And even if you have an internal team and you save a little bit because people are working full time now, maybe you do not actually save because you have more internal costs. I think having a flexible team like a really good freelancer or agency is usually more cost effective. And uh, And the reasoning behind the budgets would be that there is a lot of steps. I'm not putting who's doing which one. I'm going to keep some of the secret sauce to ourselves. But I'll tell you, there's 5 people on each of these. From that org chart, you could see them. On the org chart, I don't think I put the designer, and that'll be towards the end of publishing and then creating custom visuals. The account manager is the one who does the project management to keep it flowing together. The writer is the one who does the most time consuming everything. And the editor is the one who makes sure the quality and the consistency is met. And the SEO is the one who makes sure that we're doing this for a good reason. It's a little different than for guest blog posts, where it's heavier on the side of reaching out and arranging the partnership, and lighter on optimization, because of course, if you're publishing or writing for somebody else's website, you don't get to optimize it on there. Now we have specs that you can also see in a Google sheet, and you'll see that we have different columns in there if you click on this after this session. And the main thing, if you want to be minimalist, will be the search intent. Then the rest of the main things will be the title, the suggested sections, and the keywords. You need to give this to the writer to give them a head start. You need to give this to the editor to also give them a head start on what to watch out for. If you want to be more detailed, and please do check out the Google Doc and the Google Sheet with both the minimalist spec and the Google Doc. You can just expect to get these slides in email. You can always email me to at Branko, BRANKO, at chosendata.com. So if you want to be exhaustive about your instruction and really give the writer a head start on making sure that they have an easier time creating the best possible article on the topic, you'll want to also include resources for their research, internal links about what to link to on the same website, word count, and whether it's strict or whether there's a particular reason for a particular preference. You want to mention the noteworthy content that's already ranking that the writer can learn from. You want to link to the style guide and be explicit about how important it is. You want to give them ideas for visuals, maybe an idea for the URI, such as Mixpanel, verse, amplitude. And you want to leave a bit of room for discussion when the writer has different ideas than the brief. You want to make sure that the writer still has the creative freedom, is how I would say this. Now, another thing that I find to be a super important part of documentation, something that we've become better at recently, is giving the writer and the editor examples of other content for the same type of search intent that we've published recently. So feel free to, again, link on all these, and then I'll show you one on the next page. So ultimate guide, what is? That's a super common type of content, and we have a couple examples that we can share. We also have descriptions of different tech stacks that we've built and integrated. So this is not like a comparison of 10 tools or something. This is the 10 tools that we integrated together to reach the goal of ramping up revenue operations 5 times. And so here's our example. So Segment as the customer data platform for a very specific type of a business. Then we have trends articles, and those are really, really easy to follow as a template, because what we do is that we explain the trends and then we include a quote from an expert. These were actually based, this particular one has been based on a webinar that happened at one point. So it's a bit of a webinar transcript, but different. And we don't need to reach out to the experts anymore because they've already spoken on the webinar, and now we can include them. Then we have a tool comparison, but not just your anonymous tool comparison of tools you haven't actually used. This one has the factors of choice. So a table comparing the strengths and how they matter for your particular need. Which tool is better for you? How do you find out? We have a template for that. Then we have another template for a webinar or podcast article that's based on a webinar or a podcast that has been recorded before we wrote something, because it's not supposed to be just a transcript. It's supposed to be something that's standalone and also supports the webinar. The webinar is a lead generator. Then, for instance, we have an article about a set of tools that our SEO uses for content SEO. This will be live on our website soon. So again, this is not a comparison. It's our own stack of tools that we use for a particular goal. And then maybe the last example, a one-pager PDF for your tech partner and their sales team. So here you see that we have what happened, only a super short description of the context, then boosting the spend with segment because we want to give the segment sales team the motivation to come to our client for consulting on segment. Whenever someone asks segment directly for consulting, we want them to send the people to us instead. Then we have some notes for the designer about how to format a quote, like a testimonial, and then some more about boosting the segment usage, namely which features have been used. We also have some more notes for the writer, or maybe a quick loom, like a 3-minute loom about why this is made the way it is. And then next time we have a case study like this, such as implementing amplitude for a company and how it boosted their paid usage, then it will be really quick to write. It's incredible how content type and search intent templates speed up your production. These are the resources that I've used. I love every one of these. You see that some of them are websites with content, some of them are communities, some of them are newsletters to sign up to. Highly recommend these two, especially. Two of them, the last two, are the in-person conferences for advanced marketers. Not like some conferences where half of the talks are great and the other half not so great. On Brighton SEO and on Traffic and Conversion Summit, everything I saw was fairly advanced and great. This was just great curation by people organizing. So, bonus. Ekaterina, this is for you. You were asking, hello, thanks for your presentation and support. Oh, of course, of course. What is your point of view about using AI tools for content creation? Ion is adding, especially open chat. So that's what I thought I'd be asked, and that's what I decided would be the bonus. My thoughts on this are that it's not that new, first of all. We've been using machines for intellectual work for a while. We've been using machines to remember what's important. We've been using machines to predict what we need to see on the screen. This is not that new. For instance, for us, tools that speed up and replace our thinking, and even a lot of the execution, would be Link Whisperer for internal linking for content clusters, Market Muse for optimizing when we want to get like a 20% or a 2-spot improvement in rankings, or sometimes even a lot more than that, depending on how well you use the tool. Content Gecko, hi Risto, if you're watching this, Content Gecko is a new tool that helps you create clusters out of keyword data. So actually, to Vladimir's question, if you don't understand a topic well enough, but you've learned enough to where you think you're confident, a tool such as Content Gecko, and maybe actually only Content Gecko, can put together the clusters for you, and it can tell you what relates to what. So this is not as new, right? I mean, my VA is still a huge upgrade to my quality of life, my assistant, even though I have all these smart tools and a smart device or a few. I mean, even if I buy the next iPhone Super Pro Master Blaster 4000XX, I'm still gonna love what my VA does for me. Now, I do not know yet how AI unfolds. I do hope to use it as much as possible. And I think Google will get even better through this. I also think that the reason, or part of the reason, they're adding an E, so before it was EAT, and now it's EEAT, with the new E standing for expertise or experience. Experience. I think if you can really make your experience shine through, it's going to be really hard for AI to write content. Because can AI write content about something that wasn't done yet? I don't think so. I don't think it'd be that great. Can AI have an opinion? I don't know. Maybe it can fake it. Maybe it can have a tone. I've seen that done really well. I don't think we can distinguish AI content in writing anymore. From when I tried, there was no chance. I had no idea which is AI, which is a person. I saw some patterns, but then some of the patterns you can see in AI writing are also present in human writing. So, but I mean, AI, I think, could write a really good article, maybe the best article out there about what is a KPI. AI would probably not be able to tell you that you should be using segment with GTM instead of just comparing segment and GTM and trying to figure out which is better. AI could probably not have an opinion from own experience. So if you are today writing content that AI could replace, then I think there's two things you want to do. One is that you should use AI as much as possible, because then you'll speed everything up and you'll be able to work less, and maybe we all work less, which is what machines should help us with. Or you should write content that AI could not write because it's so personal, so original, and so new. I also think it's super important for the society to keep pushing human content, because we don't want to fall into the trap of the machine uniformity and coldness and the lack of personal expression that deviates from the mainstream. So that's my take. I hope that answers Ekaterina's and Ion's questions. Thank you for your attention. Thank you also, my beloved team. Thank you for doing work that makes it easy and flowy and fun for me to walk through how content is done based on our own experience that AI could probably not write about. Um, yes, if you're wondering, I hope you are wondering, whoever you are, we do have bandwidth for new projects. Our hiring has been great this year, thanks to our managing editor and our SEO director. And we're also open and have bandwidth for new speaking collabs and other content collaborations. So, for some more questions that I'm um, going to answer, and let me check the comments one more time. Um, okay. So a few questions that came before the webinar, and feel free to keep putting your current ones, your ones from the moment right now, into the comments, the chat. Uh, so can you get tons of traffic for mediocre content? I think you do, absolutely, but it's getting harder and harder. If you look at my least favorite content expert, Neil Patel, you'll see that he'll have these articles that he doesn't write himself, that look really technical, use all the right words, and yet they're not valuable because they don't say much despite how many technical words they use. But they do have a really strong brand and a super strong backlink profile. So that still works, unfortunately. I think especially because of the brand. And what type of technical content attracts clients? I think I've mentioned that throughout, but I would say mainly the content about their own work that nobody else could, right? And I hope I answered this one well as well, about what to do if you don't understand the topic yet. So the conclusions were, do learn to understand it well enough and use the tools to help you wrap your head around it. So I see we're getting some silly comments in the chat. It's funny that spam gets this far, but I would say I'll get quiet now and I'll pass the mic over to Olena. Thank you.
Great, Branko, thank you very much. It was super insightful, and you were so thoughtful, and you covered all the questions. So, guys, you have a couple of minutes to add your questions into the chat because we are going to um, wrap up. And Branko, do you have any points to add or highlight before wrapping up?
Mm-mm. What should I say? Uh, I would say if you really feel motivated to work on this, be ready for the long-term game. Be patient. Be ready for negative feedback. Be ready for having a slim margin or using up all of the budget when you didn't expect it to, and remain data driven so that you can truly keep improving even through something as advanced as technical blog content.
Great, perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of
And
course.
lastly, I'd like to remind our attendees, guys, keep an eye out for our future webinars and join our Serpstat chats on Twitter. It's not a voice chat, we are texting through tweeting in real time. We discuss all things related to digital marketing and, in particular, SEO there. There you can ask SEO experts questions about a featured topic. Also, you can share your expertise there. And we host the Serpstat chat regularly on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on our Twitter. So join our Google Calendar to make sure you won't miss our future Twitter chats and webinars. I'll send you the link into the chat in a few moments. It's here. And this Thursday, the topic will be how to set and achieve marketing goals when starting a business. And I would be happy if you join the Serpstat chat as well. So, Branko, thank you very much for sharing your Tuesday with us, for your knowledge, for a lot of checklists, tools, resources. It is super useful for any digital marketer. And okay, we have one more question from Ayan. Um, how to anyone know that they are doing some mistakes again and again?
Mm.
Um,
I
what
think
would you
somebody
say?
will tell you if you are. I think something will just not work. I think you will not be getting anywhere close to snowballing. I think you need the process in place to actually avoid it in the first place. That's what the process and the documentation is for. Um, so I think the how to know about it is an easier part as long as you're hands on. How to solve it is harder, but again, you have the process for that. I hope this helps.
Great. And one more, how they identify the mistake if they think that what they are doing that is right.
Mm. Yeah, this could get philosophical, eh? You could get as far as trying to define what is a mistake. Is a mistake something that someone doesn't like, or is a mistake something that doesn't bring you a particular metric growth? Or is it only a mistake if nobody likes it? So uh, I I would say if you have reporting, which is something we put a lot of effort into in order to be able to identify low performers and such. If you have reporting and quality measurement in place, then you'll see what's going on. And sometimes a mistake might not even be that important. So, for instance, if you have measurement that helps you track the traffic from your blog all the way to a conversion, all the way to becoming a lead, and maybe even all the way to tracking the value of the deal that came from the lead, then you may be surprised to see that a lot of things you considered mistakes are not mistakes. Now, if you are super, super picky about things, which a lot of clients are, then I think again they'll probably tell you, or someone who does not like it, like a picky manager, will probably tell you. I hope this answers the question.
Great. Thank you very much. So, thank you again for your time, for your knowledge. And guys, thank you for being here with us, watching, asking questions, and have a great holiday season. And let's meet again at our future online events. See you. Goodbye.